Hey everybody, it's Christian Buckley doing another MVP Buzz Chat and I'm talking today with Charles. Hello.
Thanks for having me, Christian.
It's great to be here and we're going to see each other for the next couple days. So we
We
both
are.
are out the door to an event. For folks that don't know you, who are you? Where are you? And what do you do?
All good questions. So, as you mentioned, my name is Charles Lakes. I am a recent Microsoft MVP out of the Power Apps space.
Congrats.
Long term, my background is software engineering, so I come from a pro code background. So it's kind of interesting to be in the low code space. But I am based just outside of the Atlanta area, born and raised in Georgia. So I'm just outside of Atlanta, out of the pro code space, now entering the low code space. And in essence, I just enjoy everything with the local space, being able to empower other people because I feel like technology, programming, coding has always been scary to people. And I think this gives a nicer introduction to people that they can build their own apps.
You know what I always say about the when people I know from the marketing side of things to say like the no code low code. I'm like, no, there's no such thing as the no code side of things. Like I in fact I tell people, I said no code is a lie. I said if you want to do something that's functional, that is actually productivity solutions and build things,
Hmm.
low code is real. Uh,
Yes.
I'm interested in hearing your perspective, but moving from a developer perspective into the low code, does it feel wrong? Do you get
Hmm.
ridiculed by friends that are like hardcore engineers for having moved over to this space?
I will say I think I still get a chance to retain my pro crow engineering card because I still develop a little bit. But
Okay.
it is an interesting discussion. I actually had a session about 6, 7 months ago where I was talking to another pro code developer, and the way I phrased it, I said, "Oh, you're pro code," and he looked very confused. He's like, "I just code," and so there is that big of I won't call it smugness, but confusion of why are you giving it a prefix? I just code. I do real coding. So you do hear the idea that what is this low code thing? Why are you doing this? We just code. We don't have to worry about this new thing. So there is a little bit of that, but I think largely when you explain what it is and what it can do for them, they tend to be more welcoming. But it is that hesitation before though.
Yeah. Well, it's such a misnomer though, because I mean, you think about it, and I realize it's not the same thing, but even
Hmm.
as different languages and libraries are developed, and some of them are much easier to use and more complex and have intricate parts to it, more components and libraries to go and choose from that help in the development process.
Yeah.
I mean, going back, I mean, I've been in tech for almost 35 years, and so some of that, while never on the development side of the house, um, there's always the development of scripts and tools and automations on the front end. So developers are like, well, then why are you doing that? Why are you trying to make your own life easier? And yet, why is it then wrong to have these low code solutions for non developers to do a lot of the same things? How is that any different?
So I will say it's not as different as you might think because when you look at the Power App space in particular, you have Power FX. Microsoft is building more and more into the back end, which would be the framework. They're adding more feature sets to the library. You're having that full framework like I would if I were to do a NuGet package. I remember when I was in undergrad programming, we had to write Java and use just regular Notepad, not Notepad plus plus or any fancy editor. I
Yeah.
was compiling things in Linux using Notepad.
Yeah.
And the IDEs, into a certain degree, just made programming easier. But it gave us the libraries, it gave us controls. We started working with the fact that things could be open source. And when I look at low code, it's just taking that abstraction of instead of a load code, hey, I have a fancy IDE, just put the entire IDE inside the browser that can be reformatted, be brought up to date with the latest patches. I don't have to install anything to my computer anymore. I don't
Yeah.
have to worry about if I'm on version 15 or 15.0.5. I just refresh the browser, I'm up to date. So it's actually not that different because we have the same aspect of the frameworks.
Yeah. No, I think that is a great explanation of that difference too. And then the other side of that argument too is that when you think of like employers out there, employers, clients,
Yeah.
they don't care about,
They just want
the
the
what
work done.
kind of hammer that you have for that. They just want the nails in the boards. They want the work done. And so if you're able to go and do it faster, more efficiently, and if it is easier to support that ongoing, they're going to be happier with that, because that's always
Yeah.
there has always been I'm more of a on product guy. I've worked for a number of ISVs, and
Hmm.
so there's the whole build versus buy. And the
Yes.
competition to the product companies has been, there's competition among product companies, but the greatest competition is always the company that says, well, we could just go build it ourselves. Like, sure, you could, and then
They
you'll
can.
be updating that, maintaining that, supporting that, doing all of that, and which is going to become very expensive. And then that person that you've underpaid all these years leaves, and then where are you? Um, but not that that ever happens. Yeah,
Oh, never,
but
never.
uh,
No
but
one's
yeah,
suffering from
yeah,
technical debt.
yeah, right. But it's no, it's so it's exciting to see this space, continue to develop. It's the same with like the DevOps space, where a
Yeah.
lot of that came out of the desktop support, like the folks that would, I worked in startups, and you go, and I was always friends with the IT team that is
Hmm.
doing everything from doing the code management, the source code management, and working with the developers on that end, to running telephone lines and
Yep.
setting up laptops and desktop, systems for new employees, kind of doing all of those things. And more as it got more specialized, and less of a need to go and do those kinds of, wire pulling through walls. That it was natural they took over networks, and then they took over kind of the standard, the DevOps world that we look at today.
Well, I think what's interesting about that part is you point to a very clear tradiction of evolution. You're having one process, there's a need, we address the need, we get better at the need and moves on to the next piece. There's some more evolution, some more refinement. We learn some things, we knocked our head against the wall a few times, and we develop again. And
Yep.
so technology has gone from pulling the wires to the wall to, hey, we can just augment and use the infrastructure provided by the cloud. Hey, we could build all this ourselves in house, which is great. But then for those very rare cases, like you mentioned, you'll have that one or two developers that know how to maintain this. At some point, they're going to leave, and out goes all of your knowledge with those tools as well. So you have a lot of technical debt, you have a lot of infrastructure, no one knows how to really manage. And you may have something with the security as well. So when you do something like this, leveraging the infrastructure as a box, is not going to be one size fits all, but it helps mitigate a lot of those variables of only have that single point of failure. That one developer is going to leave with all our knowledge. No, this is built in something that anybody can pick up relatively quickly. Because
Right.
again, I come from a pro code background. I can write code all day long, but can the next person understand what I'm doing? If I
Right.
make an architectural decision today that's going to impact everything for the next 10 years, did I make the right architectural decision? Or are we in a situation that we can pivot relatively quickly if we decide to change directions in the next 12 months?
Right. Well, that's another side to this. I mean, if you look at in the biz app space, if you
Mhm.
look in the across the low code world, there's been this move. And again, non-developer, but been in IT my entire career. In the late '90s and early 2000s, there was all this effort to leverage XML and
Yes.
to get into visual modeling, and the idea was, to really kind of simplify it, was that you want to be able to communicate and take diagrams and visualizations of business scenarios and problems, use cases and scenarios, in a
Yep.
way that you can communicate with non-technical people. Is this what you're trying to do? Like, yes, this is the process. All right.
Yes.
From that, speed up the generation of actual like code of, okay, here's the pieces to accomplish this. And like, so I worked with Rational Software, so they had their visual modeling tool, and so it would actually generate code, not great code, but it could get the process started.
Yeah, that's all often what you need sometimes just to get it
Right.
started.
And now, I mean, you could just go in, like I've building wireframes, just describing uh, in uh, uh, in generative AI and have it model out. Again, I don't expect it to create, finished scripts or write code,
Right.
but it can get it pretty far as the logical diagram, as far as the interface, the look and feel for that. It can put together wireframes, which I can then hand off to somebody with technical skills who could look at it and say, okay, I get what you're trying to do. This is all wrong, or this needs to happen, or you've not
Yeah.
considered this, but I understand what you're trying to do here.
I see the vision at that
Right.
point because you're. I think a lot of what gets lost with the discussions from the super technical people versus the super business people is that they're both coming from different backgrounds of their respective knowledge, and so we lose a lot of time with trying to explain from the business. This is why you should care about this. Okay, from the technology side, from the infrastructure, this is what we need by our conditional access. We need this security update, and there's that clashing. But to your point, we can now start speeding up the process because if you can create a wireframe from me that explains what the field should be, what's optional, maybe what's required, I see where you're going and I can give you the suggestions of like, hey, I see where this is going. This is the only thing we need now from the infrastructure. We don't need to have the months and months of ongoing discussions about how we're going to come to an agreement with the requirements and negotiation. We can probably have something as a viable product to show to somebody in a few days, if not a few hours, depending on how this works.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's I'm excited by that part of where things are going.
Mhm.
So again, being able to, I've been one of these people, have been in a number of startups. I've, started my own companies a couple times, sold a couple companies, and have ideas to be able to go in. Not only can I go in and use like AI to help model that out and then work with the developer on more rapid development of like an MVP, I can
Yeah,
actually leverage the AI to go in there and say, okay, here's the idea. And then before even taking that next step, like, tell me what's wrong with this. Why would this not work? You could almost like take that next step of getting feedback on your MVP before you've even spent time building the MVP, and have
very
it
true.
go and hit you with those hard questions that it would come from somebody like, before I invest 10 grand in building this initial product that we're going to go and try live with, here's the questions, here's what you would run up against. I love that aspect too of it. But
Yeah, and that aspect has actually grown quite a bit. So on the two extremes, ironically enough, I just had a user group call with the Millennium.net user group, and I was presenting .NET Maui. So as I mentioned at the top of the call, my MVP is actually inside of Power Apps. So with Power Apps, I can do low code development. With .NET Maui, I can do pro code development. And with both of them, they allow that rapid production of I can put together a simple UI with some functional button clicks because wireframes are great. I learned how to paper prototype when I was getting my degree. So we learned about paper prototyping and so forth. But I noticed there's a lot of business leaders or business users that they can look at a picture and say that's fine, but they may want something that's actually clickable. Give me it doesn't have to be a minimal viable product. It can be just simple smoke and mirrors. Just
yeah,
give me something that when I click on the button, it goes to the next screen. I know
yeah,
what to present. And we can mark up both of those either in the low code space or the pro code space pretty quickly in minutes, if not a few hours, which would normally take many more days to get something in front of the right people. And a lot of the stuff is updatable in real time that as they're giving you the requirements of can you move this to the side? Can you change this button? They're seeing it in real time. And not only can you use AI to kind of get you started, but once you got started, you as the empowered person can make those changes on the fly.
yeah,
And so you go from inception of an idea to a working smoke and mirrors proof of concept to show someone. And that gets all the productivity in the same room with the business leaders because
yeah,
that may also dictate your requirements.
yeah. Oh no, of course, because I always use the phrase. I said, people provide feedback based on their lens of understanding what they see, what they're familiar with, like side of it.
Very true.
You build them that next thing. It's like the end product may look nothing like what you're working on right now, but you have to go through those steps for people to look and say, oh, I understand what you're trying to do. We
Yes.
completely forgot this other thing, and and could take it another direction. And have you thought about this? So yeah, it expands your view, your lens of understanding of what is possible. So you have to, I mean, I started my career as a business analyst, and a lot of being a BA is that you can't just here take a look at the new technology and all the things that it can do. It gets people excited, but it also kind of it gives them a sugar high, and they're not thinking straight about what are their
Yes.
actual requirements. What do they need from this for the business? And so by iterating on that and expanding that and taking the time to go through that process
Hmm.
and piloting some of those things, you end up with a product that is very different from what was envisioned from the first set of
Yes.
requirements and desired outcomes. Yeah, it's that's why, yeah, requirements, it's a process, people. It is a process.
It's a process. It is a negotiation.
Yeah. Well, so I always like to ask too about as an MVP and contribution types. Like you had talked about before we started recording here, really enjoying the writing side of that. What are your primary contribution types?
So it's actually pretty interesting where I was actually surprised I was able to get into the MVP program because I got started writing my blog some years ago. A former user group leader told me some time ago just to blog to keep track of what I was working on. I
Yeah.
got my start inside of SharePoint. Anyone who's done SharePoint server, you know, that is a huge application to try to wrangle. And
It,
at the time, it wasn't a full team, it was just me. So
that's
I was
pretty
learning.
typical for SharePoint, though. Yeah.
Right. And I think that has unfortunately led to a lot of the negative press about SharePoint because people complain about there being, oh, SharePoint's too slow, it doesn't do X, Y, and Z. And it's usually because the right investment wasn't made to actually staff an actual team.
Right.
And so when I was managing the servers, I learned all about pretty much everything. So I got the suggestion to blog to just keep track of what I was working on because you'll be surprised how much you learn to do something. And when the next project comes along, you may forget it. So I just started blogging. That's been my main thing is that
Yeah.
I just blog. And then if I come up with a piece of script, whether or not it's some JSON formatting or PowerShell script, I may add that to my GitHub. So that turned into my two main contributions. And it's just for the last 5 years at least. I try to do at least two blog posts a month of just something I'm working on, whether or not it's SharePoint, Power Platform, .NET MAUI. Just twice a month, I've done that. And then, of course, as I mentioned, if I can share something, so you don't have to recreate everything, I'll add a script or maybe a solution export to my GitHub. So those have been my contributions of the last several years.
Yeah, so I got four adult children. I told all four of them the same advice. I said, I don't care whatever field you go into,
Mhm.
whatever you're studying, start a blog to do nothing more than to be an extension of your brain
Yes.
and track like what you're learning, what your thoughts are at the time. So it's like journaling, essentially, but it's doing it for the out there where the community can provide feedback. And I said, if you do this through 4 years of university, think about the advantage you will have over all of your peers at having, if you did, even if you did, one a month, then you would have 4 years of, 48 posts of
Yes.
your journey. That's a lot. If you're doing it once a week, wow, so it's something where I know a lot of people, they say that they do the I don't know what to write about, but if you write about what you're learning about it, one of the sorry, I'm like talking a little bit more here, but like one of the things that I did my MBA, I really
Okay.
appreciated about it is that I was working full time, started a software company, had, let's see, while I had one of my four kids while going to school. And so it was 2.5 years of weekly. And it was every week there was a group project. Almost every week there was a group project and an individual project with
Wow.
papers and a presentation on one or both every week for 2.5 years.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. And so it forces you to go through and think about how am I going to structure this? It was essentially like a project management degree, because it
Okay.
forced you to go through, assign roles. What are we going to do? We had to switch it up each time. Your strengths are this. All right, we've got this. All right, go.
Okay.
And so much of that is why it was powerful is because I was taking what I was learning and documenting all of that, and I would do what we're learning. I would apply it to my work. Work was paying for the degree as well, so it worked out.
Yeah.
You know, they enjoyed that. Hey, you're applying what you're learning here to your projects. Excellent. Um, but it really helped me cement all of that learning, that path.
It
And
does.
I could go back, look at my blog the same way I was blogging throughout that process. I could go back and point to this like, here's what I was actually doing. Oh, I completely forgot about that.
Yes.
Here's a link to that thing that I learned. I forgot I learned that. That's all. I need to go leverage that again.
And that's a big piece when you forget that, how do I do this? But then as I blog, and I'm sure you experience the same thing, I believe it helps with the writing. So as I'm writing the blog, I get better at documenting what it is, because I think, okay, if I come back to this in a year, blind to whatever my context is right now, is this going to make sense for me? So it becomes a brand new set of instructions, and my
Yep.
instructions have gotten better and better and better, so that when I refer back to that blog article 5 years ago, I'm not looking at it and say I have no idea where to start, because I did well enough to document, this is the first piece. Here's a screenshot. This is what it should look like. This is your end result. So I give myself the recipe.
Yeah. I used to be really good about too. Like most of what I write is also in OneNote. So I've been a OneNote guy for 20 years. Um, and I'll go back and I'll
It's a great
take
tool.
the URL of the blog post and put it in my notes. So when I'm writing something new, if I told you like, hey Charles, I'm going to go write. I'm
Mhm.
writing this blog post right now. In fact, I am writing a blog post. Before we joined this call, I was working on an article on content strategy, and screening content for AI and stuff. So it'll be out, folks, if you want to read that. It should be live before this goes live. But I the first thing I do is I go search through my own archives. I search on my blog and I search in my OneNote. And
Mm.
I surprise me, like I complete like, oh, I did a blog post like 4 years ago on this topic and completely forgot about that. And I'll leverage that. Is it plagiarism if I'm pulling from my own writings?
I think
Uh,
there's a creative license that you can use bit of it for
I think
educational
so.
purposes.
I don't know if it's been tested out in court, but I'd feel okay. I'd feel good.
But that does happen. I've caught myself as well, where I'm trying to plan out my next few blog posts. Okay, let me come up with a topic. Once I get the topic, then I'll start populating something. And I go and, you know what? Let me just double check. Let me just double check. I'm sure I haven't done it, but let me double check.
Yeah.
Find out I almost use the exact same title.
Yep.
It never fails.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's a good idea. Is a good idea. There you go. That's why it was. That's why it was top of mind for that. But yeah,
Touche.
that is something. Well, hey, when I see you here tomorrow night, we might have a conversation about this topic because content reuse and something that I think companies, my clients, a lot of MVPs make the mistake of not utilizing their own content enough. I have
Okay.
some strong opinions on that. So, but anyways, yeah, Charles, I know that we're just over on time, but great to connect with you. I'll see you here tomorrow night as we're both headed towards to Memphis.
Yeah,
So,
I'll see you at Memphis Community Days.
and of course, I'll have all of Charles, all of your contact info out on YouTube and in the blog and the bio there. So anybody wants to reach out and connect with Charles, I don't know if you do many collabs, if you have people reaching out to you and be like, "Hey, would you be interested in doing something together?" Has that happened that much to you yet?
Not a lot yet. I have one or two people that we have spoken about if the opportunity presents itself. So we're maybe brainstorming possibilities, but so far just a few handful of people.
Yeah, I wish people would do it more. That's find your favorite MVPs and be like, hey, I'm if you're interested in becoming an MVP or not, or just are interested in creating content together. Most MVPs are willing to like love to have a conversation if we can
Yeah.
work together and do something together. So yeah,
Well, I think that's the thing about the MVPs. We are enjoying giving back and trying to bring up the next crop of MVPs.
always, always. So all right, well, Charles, hey, We'll travel safely tonight, and I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks so much.